Hello, I'm Dimitri Metzeltin from Mackie, and I'm presenting to you Mackie's latest addition to the DL series, the DL32R. We all know the DL806 and the DL1608, and the DL32R is now the 32-channel version of this digital mixing desks that can be controlled using an iPad. So they work completely wireless. This means you can mix from anywhere in the room. So let's take a look at the front side of the DL32R. We have here 32 inputs. We have in total 14 XLR outputs plus an ASA-BU, a monitor and headphone outputs. On the back side we'll find the Ethernet port. On the Ethernet port I can hook up my wireless router. You can actually use any router you want to hook up your iPad and connect your iPad to the mixer. And additionally, we also have two USB outputs and two USB connectors on the back side. One is for connecting the DL32R to a PC or to a Mac. And this way you can record up to 32 channels or play back 32 channels. So the DL32R this way also works as an audio interface. The second USB connector is for connecting an external hard drive like we did here. This means that you can directly record 24 tracks and very soon up to 32 tracks at the same time to this external hard drive and play back up to 32 tracks. And everything is then controlled from within your software. So in what fields can you use the DL32R? So there are many user scenarios. One can be in live clubs, so this makes perfect sense to have it, for example, in a live club directly on stage, so you don't need a stage box, you don't need the snake, and you can then mix from anywhere in the room with your iPad, check the ideal front of house position or even go on stage and ring out the monitors, for example. This is also great for installations, as it is a 19-inch 3-unit rack mount. It can be really placed somewhere hidden. And everything then controlled using your iPad. Also great for theaters, especially with the abilities here in the software to save your snapshots and shows at the same time. And it's also great for bands, especially because we have so many outputs and we have up to 14 aux that you can use. And with the possibility to connect up to 10 iOS devices at the same time to one DL32R, this means that every musician in the band can make his own in-ear monitor mix in this case, also using an iPhone, for example, or an iPod Touch. So I'll go back to the inputs and the outputs here. We have in total, as I said, 32 analog inputs, 24 as XLRs and 8 as combo inputs here, and we're using the Onyx Plus preamps. So we all know the Onyx, the renowned Mackie Onyx preamps, and with the Onyx Plus we took it a step further. They are even better regarding the specs, and we've put a lot of effort in to make them really silent when you recall new gain settings. As now the preamp is controlled completely wirelessly and digitally, on some mixers it may occur that you hear clicks when you change the gain settings, for example, when you recall another snapshot. Here we made sure that it's really completely silent. So that's for the inputs. On the outputs, it's good to know that all the outputs can be used completely flexible. So I have a completely flexible routing inside my master fader software, so I can send any aux or any of my matrices to any of the outputs, however I want to use it. Okay, I'll switch to the software. I have the iPad here. It's now connected to the DL32R. When I go through the software, I see all my 32 channels. And actually I see more than 32 channels. I see in total 36 input channels. And this has a reason. So we have 32 physical inputs, but we have 36 channels in total, input channels. A good example is if you're using the audio inputs, but you're also using playbacks, usually they share the same channels. And this is no problem if maybe you're just using 20 of the analog inputs and you have another 8 returns coming from your USB drive, then you'd simply use the channels you have. But let's say you're mixing a band that is really using all 32 inputs at the same time, and you have additionally some playbacks. Then we still have some channels left, in total 4 channels left, to realize the playbacks in that case. So this is really handy to have these additional inputs there. Furthermore, we have here the effect return channels, then the 6 subgroups, which I made stereo subgroups, and the VCA groups, so I can connect a couple of faders together to one VCA group in that case. So a lot of possibilities here. Every channel can have its own name. I can color code it. I can use an image. So I can, for example, use an icon here for the toms. Let's say I put in this icon here. I can even use the camera of the iPad to take pictures, for example, of the singers, or if you're in a conference, you can take pictures of the different people talking in the conference, so you really know how you switch to the right person who's speaking in that case. So that's also a really handy feature here. The standard things like solo and mute can be found right here. The panning is right there. So you have all the standard things right here on your hands, and so the faders also. It's also multi-touch compatible, so I can also move multiple faders at the same time. So now let's look at the DSP power that we have per channel. So I go into the channel view and I open the EQ, and I see here that I have a full parametric 4-band EQ for all channels available at all times, including a high-pass filter, and it all can be controlled graphically here at the tip of your fingers. A lot of presets come with it, and you can also store your own presets. We also have the possibility to change between a modern and a vintage EQ, and it's not just different graphics, it's really a different EQ that you choose here. So the modern EQ is a digital EQ, very precise, and the vintage EQ is modeled after an analog EQ, which may sound more musically in that case. And the nice thing is that you can really make an A/B comparison between the two EQs to decide which EQ you want to use on a certain signal. When I move further down, I see the gate and the compressor, so I see my dynamics that I have on all channels. Also, everything can be controlled graphically right here. Set up your compressor like that. It can also be used as a limiter, as you see here. And I can also switch between a modern and a vintage compressor. The same thing with the gate, really sounding different again. This one's sounding more like an opto compressor, and the modern compressor is a digital compressor in that case. Okay, on the next page I see my send effects. So we've included the controls of the send effects in every channel. Usually you need to take a couple of steps to set up your send effects. You have to set up your aux sends or your effect sends. You have to set up the parameters of the reverbs and the delays, and you have to set up the return signal here. So these are a couple of steps that you have to go back and forth. And what we've done here is to be quicker setting up your effects, is that your send effects can be controlled within every channel. So I have my effect send right here. I have the parameters, for example, for the reverb right here, like pre-delay or decay, and I have the reverb return signal right here. So I have everything under control on a per channel basis. We also included the standard procedure, but this is another way to do it. As we have a lot of channels, the question might come up, oh, how do I keep an overview over all the channels that I have? Well, we have an overview window, and I open it up here. In the overview window, I see all my 28 output buses and I see all my input channels at the same time. And when I see that the signal is maybe running too hot, or maybe there is a problem with a feedback, I can just type on the channel and the software jumps directly into the channel and I can change the levels right away. What I see here on this page in the channel view is now my routing. I can change between an A and a B source, so that's also a very useful feature. So I can switch very quickly between the microphone preamp and in this case the USB input, for example. And if I switch back to the microphone preamp, I see here my gain, my digital gain that I can control here, and the 48 volts for the phantom power, including also a trim if signals are running too hot. Underneath that, I'll see my routing window. Here I can decide where the snare drum in this case should go to. It should go to the subgroups of the drums. It could also be the mains, for example. Then I can add the snare channel to a VCA group, or to one of the 6 mute groups, or to one of the 6 view groups. And then the view groups is another way to help you to keep a good overview over all your mixer settings. The view groups can be recalled right here on the right side. So I can recall different views here, and I can assign my own view groups, and it's really easy. So I have 6 view groups, and if I say, okay, I want to see these channels in this view group, I simply assign it, they are green, and then I switch, and here you see the new view group. So it's really quick to set it up this way. So you always keep a full overview over what you're doing on the DL32R in that case. Okay, let's take a look here on the top. We have a playback and recording window here. So if you're using an external hard drive, you have then on the left side your stereo files, so you can play back stereo files, create your own playlist. This is good for intermission music, for example. And on the right side I find my multi-channel tracks, which I can play back, or where I can record multi-channel tracks in that case. And as I said, this will be up to 32 channels in total. Right next to it I find my input and output routing window with an input A and the input B. So as you see here, you can switch between the A and B inputs. And on input A we are using the microphone preamps, and on input B the USB returns. But this is completely flexible, so any input can be sent to any channel, any USB input can be sent to any channel as well. You can even send a signal to multiple channels if you like, so you're really flexible with this mixer. Same with the outputs. I see all my outputs here on the top, also the USB outputs. And then we have here a field called Dante. We have an expansion slot, and Mackie is also offering a Dante card, an optional Dante card, which adds up to 32 channels that can be routed through the Dante network. Okay, now let's take a look at all my outputs. As I said, we have in total 28 output buses. So we have the left-right master bus, we have 14 aux sends, then we have here 6 subgroups, which I grouped into stereo subgroups, and 6 matrices also. And on all these output buses, I have a lot of DSP power again. So if I switch here, on every output bus I have a 31 band graphic EQ, which I can change by simply using it this way. I can even draw the lines here and reset the graphic EQ like that. Apart from that, we have additionally also a full parametric 4-band EQ again on every output, and it can be used alongside your graphic EQ. And this 4-band EQ now comes with a high pass and a low pass filter, where you also can change the slope right here. Then I see my channel assignment window, and the channel assignment works in a way that I say, okay, for example, in this subgroup, I would like to add the guitars, for example. So this works both ways. If you're in a channel, you can say, okay, send this channel to this subgroup. But if you're working on your subgroup, you still can get channels connected to that subgroup again. On the left side, I can assign the single output buses to VCA or to mute groups. And last but not least, we also have a compressor and delay lines on every output bus. Compressor is really handy. For example, if you're mixing a band and you want, for example, to compress your drums to make them even punchier, or you can use them also, the compressors, as a limiter. So for example, this is great for INI monitoring, where you want to go sure that no peak level is coming to the headphones. And the delay lines can be set up to 100 meters or 300 milliseconds, and it's set up right there. You can even type in the numbers if you like, and you can even change the temperature, so the speed of sound changes accordingly to the temperature in the room. Okay, let's take a look at the snapshots, and we can store up to 99 snapshots into one show. So you not only can store presets for the EQs, for example, or for the compression, you can also store the complete mixer settings, and this is stored in the snapshot, and these snapshots can then be added to a show, and that's then 99 snapshots in one show. So this can be really useful. For example, if you're a technician working on many different projects, then every show could be one of the projects, and every snapshot could be one of the songs, for example. In theaters, this can also be interesting, a show being, well, a show, and every snapshot then being a certain scene in the show. So you have a lot of possibilities there again. So to wrap it all up, with a DL32R, you get an extremely roadworthy 19-inch mixer that is controlled completely wireless using an Apple iPad, and you can use up to 10 iOS devices at the same time. So this could be iPads, but this can be also the iPhone or an iPod Touch. The DL32R is also extremely flexible, with 32 inputs here and in total 18 outputs, and completely flexible routing. So this is really an important feature here, that we offer complete flexibility. Furthermore, we have then the possibility to connect a PC or an external hard drive direct to your mixer and control the playbacks and the recordings also from within the Master Fader software. The Master Fader software is available for download in the App Store, completely free. So this means that you can download the software right away, try out the software. It works offline. That's also a great thing, because this way you can create your own settings, and as soon as you connect it to a DL32R, you simply synchronize both to each other. So in this way you can also even work offline using the Master Fader software. So this is Mackie's DL32R. I'm Dimitri Metzeltin. Thank you very much for watching.